Hello and welcome to the SchedulesPlus service tutorial. Services in SchedulesPlus is a module that helps you track services that you are providing to guests. Services such as Meals on Wheels, home chore, respite care, tax assistance, or other services where you need to identify an appointment time, the type of service delivered, and perhaps a provider that will be delivering that service. The services overview is explained a little bit more on our info site. And what we see here is the module can help you create a service record for an individual, defining the service that they will receive. And that's the type of category or purpose of the service, such as Meals on Wheels, home chore, and so on. These are categories that you can define. The date and time of the service, the duration of that service, for example, 15 minutes, a half an hour, 1 hour. The frequency of that service. Perhaps this is an individual who will receive this service regularly, perhaps one time each week, one time every other week, or maybe it's just a single service event. You can identify who will be the provider for that service, if there is a fee connected to it and whether it's been paid. And you can also track funders for specific service categories. Oftentimes, organizations may have a benefactor who has offered to pay for services for your members in a particular category area. The service can also identify the billing information because sometimes services are billed to an individual or to insurance or the funder, and then you can keep notes on services. As you create services, you will want to be able to report on those services. So SchedulesPlus also includes reports that allow you to pull out the information that's valuable to you in terms of key metrics that you report on to your board and other funders. And then finally, services can also enable you to create a list of needs for your account. Oftentimes, you're actually just interested in finding out if a new service you're thinking about may be a valuable service to your membership. So you can actually keep track in SchedulesPlus of individuals that have requested that or identified it as a need. And as that need grows and you have more and more people identified, then it gives you a nice base of information as to whether or not to begin that service. Let's take a look at the service details within the SchedulesPlus module. After you've signed in to SchedulesPlus administration, you're going to want to click on the Services tab. Here, you're going to be brought to today's list of service requests. In this particular example, we haven't created one yet. One of the first things you're going to do when you first start to use services is you want to make sure it's set up for your use. So we're going to click on the Setup tab. As we look at that, we've already defined several service categories. We defined a Meals on Wheels Route 1, a Home Chores service, Social Services, and Tours. We can add other services that we deliver here. Perhaps we want to add another one called Meals on Wheels Route 2. So we click the Add button. We type in the short name, the longer name that will be useful in reports, and then we save that. In this case here, we've got a Meals on Wheels that has a flat rate of $3 for Route 1. You can actually pre-populate the fees and identify them as a flat rate or by hour, what that fee would be, and the payment category for that. And then whenever an individual service request is set up for that particular category, it will default the payment for that to the amount you've listed. You can always override it, but this is a nice feature to have it pre-populated. We're going to go ahead and save that, and now we've got that defined as well. I'm going to add one more. We're just going to call it Other, and save that. So you can see here how quickly it is to set up those categories. The other thing you're going to want to check on is your providers. If you are delivering service, you're going to also identify specific people that are providers of those service. And perhaps you have just an organizational provider, but at the end of the day, you're going to want to identify all of those providers in the system. Here we've got 3 individuals that we've identified as providers of service. And you can see here the definitions here with respect to the services that they can deliver. We're going to update John and add that Meals on Wheels Route 2 as well to his list simply by holding the Control key, and we're going to save that now, and all of those can be delivered. by John. If there's nothing listed, then that particular provider can deliver any of the services that you're offering. With that set, now we're going to take a look at all requests. Again, we have no services that have been defined for today, but we want to add a service request for a person who's called and would like to get a meal. So I'm going to click the Add Service Request button, and the person who's called is Mr. Moen. And we didn't find anybody in our system with that name. So we can easily add him as a new contact and add his name. And we can provide his street address. And if there's an email address, we could include that. I'm going to go ahead and save this. Oops, I didn't type in my full telephone number. So you can see here there's some error checking as well involved in the product. So now it created him as a contact in our database, and so I can identify the record. First of all, I want this to be delivered today. As an example only, it's at 12 p.m. I can actually identify that he's going to receive this every day or every week, but I'm going to actually say every day, and I'm just going to have it repeat for a couple of days. And the duration is in hours, and the service is Meals on Wheels Route 1. And we can identify the provider now, or we can do it later. But one of the things you see here is that it lists only those providers that you've set up to deliver that service. I'm going to select John. And then you can see here it auto-populated the fee for that. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And now it created that record for me on today's date. In the filters that you see at the top, you can actually filter the list of services quite easily. So if we wanted to see all of the services for this week, we can click on the This Week button. If we wanted this month, we can do so. And you can also modify the start and end dates on your own and filter. There's additional filters, accommodations, where you can filter by any in the list or specific accommodations, a specific funder, a specific client, or provider, and so on. As we take a look at the list, we can see those that are receiving services. You see the date and the time of that service. Each service that you request has a unique ID, and you can see the status of that service. If you've created a service and you want to copy the aspects of that service for a future record, there is a copy button. If you created a service that later you need to delete, there's a delete button that you can click and it will remove that from your services. You can see the hours, the duration, the person receiving the service, and pertinent information including their telephone number and their address, any specific accommodations they have, the type of service they're to receive, the provider of that service, fees and if it's been paid, and then the number of units. As you look at this services page of all the requests in the range that you've requested, all of these field areas here that are highlighted in blue, you're able to change those for each service request. Normally, you would have to click on a specific person to edit their record, but in this Services tab, you're able to edit multiple records in a single transaction. And what the system will look at is if you've got all of these checkboxes here on the left-hand side checked, any changes that you put into these input fields will be applied. So if I wanted to change a specific service because the category was incorrect, I can easily do that, and if this box is checked, it will save that change and update it for me. Changing the time can also be done here as well. This gives you a really fast path to update multiple records if that's necessary. Let's go back and look at today's list alone, and it filters us back to that record that we created a moment ago. And what I want to do is I want to update this. It wasn't Meals on Wheels Route 1, it was Meals on Wheels Route 2. I want to save that change, and now that is saved. One of the other things you can do as you look at the service list is you can export the list, and it will export it to an Excel spreadsheet. Again, if you wanted to add more service requests, you simply use the Add Service Request button, look for the person you want to add the service for, and add that to begin the process of adding it. If you start the process to add a service and you've decided you don't really want to do it, just don't save it. You can just go back to your All Requests page and continue from there. And this is filtered by default to the person I was looking at. If you want to see all service requests, you simply click on All Requests, and now I'm just seeing all requests for the current day. Whenever you enter the Services module, it's going to bring you to the current day because that's the one that you're most interested in looking at. If you're going to prepare for services for the next day, you can click Next Day and it will show you the services and the recipients on that day. You can print this using your Browser Print button, setting up the landscape or portrait as you prefer, or as I mentioned, you can export. So that is how you create your service requests and look at them and manipulate them and change them within the product. If you want to report on the services that you've created, you click on the Reports tab. And there are 4 pre-canned reports. Each one of these reports gives you many filtering options at the top that allow you to basically get the data out of the system that you're looking for. The services summary will give you, it defaults to the current month, and it will tell you the total services, those that had accommodations, those that were assigned, those that are still requested and not assigned, complete, canceled, and so on. You can identify unique providers by day, the total number of service hours per day, units, and fees. If you look at services by person and category, again, filtering up here, you have many filtering choices, but you can see the trend and the information for an individual. So I can see in this month, Marge received 1 service, and you can see the statistics there and what category of those service it was. You can see here Dave received 2 services and what those were. If I'm looking by payment category, the same applies there. I can see the total units by payment category. This is useful for your bookkeeping department because those payment categories are easily connected to accounting codes that are used for your QuickBooks purposes and bookkeeping purposes. And then I can see a daily total by person. So I can look at each individual and see over the given month what day they received those services. So this is useful from a trending perspective. So that is a quick view of the Services module. Thank you for joining this tutorial.